The most aesthetic muscle group you can build up is definitely your shoulders. I know some of you guys are going to disagree with me, but have you ever seen someone's physique where their shoulders were too big, where it just looked disproportionate and didn't look good? Was it super unaesthetic? In my opinion, no. The bigger the shoulders, the more aesthetic. Obviously, proportions are always going to win, but if I were to have any muscle group be significantly bigger and disproportionate to everything else, it would definitely be my shoulders. Having big cap shoulders is something a lot of men really want to accomplish. That as well as a six pack. So if you want to have shoulders like a Greek god, then this is exactly what you need to do. Not just big shoulders, but big, round, capped, 3D shoulders. None of this big front delt and small rear delt shit. I see that all too often. So let's first start off with what not to do. The worst thing you can do is neglect your rear delts, because your rear delts are going to be what give your shoulder that proportionate look. Having big rear delts is essential to your shoulder aesthetics. Everyone is so focused on shoulder presses and doing compound movements because you can lift a lot of weight, but in my opinion, it's really defeating the whole purpose of building big shoulders. You know, if your goal is just to lift as much weight as possible, by all means keep doing shoulder presses. And if you don't care about having capped shoulders, by all means keep doing that. But that's not what I want. I would rather have an aesthetic physique than just be super strong. I would rather have people ask me how much I lift instead of me having to go out and tell them. So I'm not a huge fan of shoulder presses because they mostly focus on your front delts, which already really get destroyed whenever you're hitting chest or doing any sort of pressing movement. However, if you're still pretty new to the gym, then I definitely recommend doing a couple sets of shoulder presses a week, just because you have so many gains to make. But you'd make sure you don't want to overdo them. I know I definitely overdid the shoulder presses when I first started because that's what I saw everyone else doing. I sort of just copied what I saw everyone else do, and I was like, that must be the right thing to do. But over time, I started to notice that my shoulders were very front delt focused. So now at my experience level, I don't do any shoulder presses. My front delts are big, and I'm always trying to bring up my side and rear delts though. My main focus is just trying to build an aesthetic physique, not necessarily being super strong. Sure, strength comes over time, but it's not my main goal. So again, if you're a beginner, I definitely recommend doing 2 to 3 sets of shoulder presses per week. But other than that, I would really just focus on hitting your side and rear delts. Back then, my shoulder press of choice was definitely going to be a machine shoulder press. I prefer that over dumbbell or barbell, just because it felt much more natural to me. But honestly, if you're new, just test out the different styles of shoulder pressing and see which one you like and see which one you feel the most. Again, don't overdo shoulder presses because your front delts already get destroyed when you're hitting chest. Now let's move on to side delts. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Having big side delts is going to make your shoulders look much more wide. So if you want big side delts, you absolutely need to be doing lateral raises. It can be dumbbell, it can be machine, or even cable. You can either do single arm or both arms at the same time, whichever you prefer. My preferred movement for side delts is definitely going to be dumbbell lateral raises. Sometimes I'll do one arm at a time, or sometimes I'll do both. It really just depends on how I'm feeling. But a big mistake a lot of guys make when they're doing lateral raises is lifting way too much weight and swinging the weight like crazy. Not only is it unnecessary, but you're gonna engage a lot more of your traps than your side delts. So pick a moderately heavy weight where you can really focus on your side delts. It's still challenging, but you can really feel that mind-muscle connection work. I've been guilty of this too, lifting too much weight. I used to use the 45s or 50 or even 50s when I was doing lateral raises, and that was just way too much. Sure, I still got a decent pump and everything, but when I lowered the weight down to 35s or even 30s, I felt my side delts activate significantly more. There's no need to ego lift here, but really that's just with almost any exercise in my opinion. You don't really need to ego lift, unless your main goal is just to get as strong as possible. I do 4 sets, 10 to 15 reps, while going to failure, and sometimes I'll throw in some partials just to make sure the intensity is as high as possible. Another great exercise for side delts that I don't see a lot of people do is up front rows. If you've never done these before, then it might be a little bit tricky. But if you can master this movement, then it is going to be a great addition to add to your shoulder routine. Again, similar to lateral raises, you don't need to lift super heavy here because you're just going to be hitting a lot more of your traps, and in this case, a lot so your biceps. The trick here is that you want to lead with your elbows and kind of bring the bar up towards your mouth/nose area. Another thing to note is that you don't need to fully extend your arms because fully extending your arms just takes the tension off your side delts. I come down about 2/3 of the way. So what I'll do for this is 4 sets, 10 to 15 reps, going to failure, with some partials of course. So if you combine lateral raises and upfront rows and do those for a long period of time, then there is no reason why you won't be able to build big side delts. Now for the last part of the shoulders, the rear delts. In my opinion, the absolute most important. Again, too many people neglect their rear delts for whatever reason and end up with weird, unaesthetic looking shoulders. So if you want to build cap shoulders, this is exactly what you need to do for your rear delts. First, you need to make sure you're hitting them at least a minimum of 2 to 3 times a week. They're a small muscle group, so you don't really have to worry about overtraining that much. They recover really quick. If you're a beginner, then stick to about 2 times a week, just to start. In order to make this work, you need to hit your rear delts at the end of your chest workouts or your push workouts or your back/pull workouts. Even if these are on back-to-back days, I'll still hit my rear delts then. I notice for me, my rear delts really don't get that sore. But when I'm doing the movements that I'm going to go over next with you, I really feel my rear delts activate burn, and the pump is insane. So I know I'm definitely giving them the stimulus they need. It's what I've been doing for years, and I've seen great results doing it, so there's no reason why you can as well. So in my opinion, the best exercise for rear delts is going to be single arm reverse cable flies. I prefer to focus on one side at a time because I just feel my rear delts activate more when I do it like this. So throw in 4 sets, 10 to 15 reps, go into failure at the end of your chest / push workouts. Now at the end of my back workouts, this is exactly what I'll do. I'll do reverse pec deck flies as well as another reverse cable fly of choice. Sometimes I'll do both arms at the same time, or sometimes I'll even just do one again. Notice how I only do one rear delt exercise at the end of my chest workouts, but I'll do 2 at the end of my back workouts. There really isn't any specific reason for me doing this other than it's just what I've always done. And it's always seemed to work for me, so why would I change it up? So again, it's all pretty self-explanatory here. You don't need to be lifting a whole lot of weight for your rear delts as well. What you should really focus on is the mind-muscle connection, the burning sensation, as well as the pump. Obviously, make sure you use a weight that's still challenging for you, but there's no need to ego lift here as well. Like a huge mistake I see a lot of guys make in the gym is just lifting way too much weight on everything, especially isolations. Sure, it looks cool and it might feel good in the moment, but you're leaving so many gains on the table by ego lifting like that. Like if your goal is to just be as strong as possible, then by all means, keep doing that. But if your goal is to build capped, aesthetic looking shoulders and an aesthetic physique in general, then mind muscle connection and not ego lifting is going to be your best bet. I can guarantee you that. It's going to help you build an aesthetic physique much quicker. Not saying you can't be aesthetic and strong at the same time, but I am saying it is important to focus on one goal at a time. It's just going to help you get there quicker. Yeah, that's exactly how I built capped looking shoulders. Sure, there are things that are outside of the gym that I could go over, like sleep, recovery, nutrition, that would help aid in building those shoulders, but I've made plenty of other videos on those topics. This video was more so going over my training routine that I use to build my shoulders. So definitely start implementing these exercises for yourself and just see the improvements you start to make to your shoulders over time. Again, you aren't going to see results unless you're consistent with it. It could take months and months or even years to start seeing the results. I know it did for me. I'd say it took me about 4 years to build cap looking shoulders. I've always had decently sized shoulders, but to build aesthetic and cap shoulders, that took me a long time. So definitely give these exercises a go for yourself and implement them into your shoulder routine and let me know how it goes.